On the drive home from a massive 4th of July barbecue in Savannah when I was 16, I got into a devastating crash on Interstate 95. The surgeon said I needed emergency surgery within the hour or I wouldn't survive. My mom and my younger sister were at an exclusive day spa that afternoon. When the hospital put her on speaker, my mom's exact words were, "If she doesn't pull through, just let me know later. We're in the middle of a hot stone massage and I'm not signing anything right now." My name is Tiana Monroe and I'm 21 now. 19 days later, when I finally opened my eyes, the clipboard at the foot of my bed had been quietly updated. It no longer listed my mother as my legal guardian. Someone else's name was there instead. And that new guardian was, if you've ever watched the people who are supposed to love you the most turn their backs the second you needed them, drop the words "I've seen it" in the comments so I know I'm not the only one. Hit that subscribe button if you want to know exactly who stepped up when my own mother walked away, because the story only gets crazier from here. Let me take you back to how everything started. I grew up in a sprawling brick house in Buckhead, just outside Atlanta. My dad died of pancreatic cancer when I was 7. One week he was teaching me how to shoot hoops in the driveway, the next he was gone. After the funeral, the only person who still showed up every single weekend was my mom's father, Walter Hayes. Everyone in the neighborhood knew him as the former fire chief who never really retired. He just traded the helmet for a fishing hat and a rocking chair on the front porch. He'd pull up in his old Chevy Silverado, bring me fried chicken and mac and cheese from his favorite soul food spot on Auburn Avenue, and let me sit in the front seat while he told stories about rescuing families from burning buildings. To me, he wasn't Grandpa Walter. He was simply Pops, the one adult who never cancelled. My mom, Rochelle Monroe, grieved for about a year. Then she met Gregory Turner at some charity auction downtown. Gregory owned 3 luxury car dealerships and drove a black Mercedes-Benz that always smelled like new leather. 2 years later, they got married in a garden ceremony I barely remember. 8 months after that, Destiny arrived, blonde, loud, and instantly the center of the universe. Suddenly, the house had a nursery, a live-in nanny, and a whole new set of rules. My bedroom got moved to the back corner over the garage, so Destiny could have the bigger room with the bay windows. My basketball trophies disappeared into boxes. My mom started introducing me as my older daughter instead of by name, like I was an extra in someone else's family portrait. By the time I turned 14, I was basically invisible. Gregory paid for everything, but he never looked at me unless I was in his way. Destiny got new clothes every season. I got handed-down uniforms from the private academy I didn't even attend. The only place I still felt wanted was Pop's little ranch house in Decatur, 20 minutes across the perimeter. He kept my old bike in his garage, kept the fridge stocked with popsicles, and never once asked why I spent every free weekend there. 4th of July weekend when I was 16 was supposed to be different. Pops threw his annual cookout, 3 long tables under the oak trees, barbecue ribs, potato salad, sweet tea in mason jars. Cousins I hadn't seen in years flew in. There was music, kids running everywhere, the smell of charcoal in the air. I wore the coral sundress Pops bought me the month before because he said it matched my smile. For a few hours, it almost felt like the old days, like maybe I still belonged somewhere. Then I overheard my mom on the phone by the dessert table. She was laughing, telling someone she and Destiny had booked a mother-daughter spa day the next morning, facials, massages, the whole package. And after that, they were flying to Miami for summer vacation, just the 3 of them, her, Gregory, and Destiny. My name never came up. I stood there holding a plate of peach cobbler, feeling it go cold in my hands. I told Pops I had a headache and needed to head home early. He tried to argue, I could tell something was wrong, but I just wanted out. He handed me the keys to the 2001 Honda Accord he'd helped me buy with my summer camp counselor money. "Drive careful, sweetheart. Text me when you get there." I promised I would. It was already getting dark when I hit I-95 northbound. A summer storm rolled in fast, the way they do in Georgia, sky turned black, rain coming down in sheets. Windshield wipers going full speed and still losing the battle. Traffic slowed to a crawl. I had the radio up loud to keep myself awake, some old R&B song Pops loved. Headlights blurred into streaks of white and red. I never saw the 18-wheeler until it was too late. The driver hydroplaned, jackknifed it across 3 lanes, and slammed into the driver's side of my Honda doing at least 65. Metal screamed. Glass exploded. The world flipped twice, roof caving in before it finally slid to a stop upside down against the median. I remember the seatbelt cutting into my shoulder, the taste of blood, the sudden silence after the crash, and then nothing at all. Somewhere far away, sirens started screaming toward me. The emergency room at Grady Memorial was pure chaos. Doctors shouted codes. Monitors screamed. Someone kept yelling for more O-negative. They wheeled me straight into Trauma Bay 1. My clothes were cut off in seconds. Needles went into both arms, tubes down my throat. A surgeon in blood-spattered scrubs leaned over me and said my pelvis was shattered, spleen ruptured, bleeding inside my skull, and I had less than an hour before things went irreversible. They needed parental consent to take me to the operating room right now. A nurse with kind eyes held my phone, scrolled to Mom, and hit FaceTime. The call connected on the third ring. I heard spa music and the low hum of massage chairs. My mother's face appeared, sheet mask still on, cucumber slices over her eyes. Destiny was sprawled on the table next to her, earbuds in, scrolling TikTok. "Mrs. Turner, this is Nurse Chen at Grady Trauma," the nurse said, angling the camera so Rochelle could see my face covered in blood and the ventilator tube. "Your daughter has been in a severe accident. She has life-threatening injuries and requires immediate surgery. We need verbal consent now or she may not survive the next hour." Rochelle peeled one cucumber slice off and squinted at the screen. Destiny pulled an earbud out and leaned over to look. The doctor stepped in. "Ma'am, we're looking at multiple fractures, internal bleeding, possible brain swelling. We have to open her up immediately." Rochelle sighed like someone had just asked her to move her car. "If she doesn't make it, just call me when it's over," she said, voice flat. "We're in the middle of a treatment and I'm not driving all the way downtown to sign papers." Destiny let out a short, sharp laugh, covered her mouth, then snapped a screenshot of my battered face on the gurney. I watched her thumbs fly across the screen. Later, I would learn the caption she sent her group chat was, "Finally some peace." The nurse's hand trembled holding the phone. A doctor behind her muttered, "Jesus Christ." Someone else whispered, "Get that recorded." The nurse tried again. "Ma'am, this is a legal requirement for a minor." "I heard you," Rochelle cut in. "Call my father, Walter Hayes. He'll handle it. We paid for a full day here." She ended the call. The trauma team stared at the blank screen. One resident looked ready to throw the phone across the room. They scrolled to the next emergency contact, Pops. His old Chevy Silverado was already on the road when the hospital reached him. He'd been sitting on his porch cleaning catfish for tomorrow's supper. The second he heard Tiana and Critical, he dropped everything and floored it across the interstate, still wearing rubber boots and an apron stained with fish scales. Rain hammered the windshield. Lightning lit up the sky. He made the 30-minute drive in 18. He burst through the ER doors soaked to the bone, badge from 35 years ago still clipped to his belt out of habit. The charge nurse took one look at the retired chief and waved him straight through. He signed every consent form they shoved in front of him without reading a single line, hand shaking so hard the pen scratched the paper. They let him into the bay long enough to see me, tubes everywhere, face swollen beyond recognition. He leaned close to my ear and whispered the same thing he used to say when I had nightmares as a little kid, "I've got you, sweetheart. Pops is right here." Then they rushed me to surgery. He pulled a metal chair up to the glass wall outside the operating room and sat down. He didn't move for the next 10 hours. Not when the nurses offered coffee. Not when the waiting room emptied. Not when the storm outside knocked the power out for 15 minutes and the backup generators kicked on. When they finally wheeled me to ICU just before dawn, he followed the bed, still holding the same cold hand that had gone limp hours earlier. The next 19 days became the longest of Pop's life. ICU smelled like antiseptic and fear. Machines hissed and beeped in a rhythm that never let anyone forget how thin the line was. Pops claimed the vinyl recliner beside my bed and refused to leave. Nurses tried to send him home the first night. He just showed them the old badge still in his wallet and said, "I'm not going anywhere." After that, nobody argued. He slept in 30-minute bursts, head tipped back, mouth open, boots still on. When he woke, he talked to me non-stop, voice low so the monitors wouldn't drown him out. He told me about the night I was born, how he held me first because my mom was too exhausted. He retold the story of the summer I was 9 and we caught a 4-foot catfish off Lake Lanier, how I screamed until he let me reel it in myself. He read aloud from the worn copy of Their Eyes Were Watching God he kept in the truck, doing all the voices. Some evenings he just hummed the old gospel hymn his own mother sang when he was little, the one that always put me to sleep on his couch. Doctors came and went. One morning, the neurologist said the swelling in my brain was down. Another afternoon, the orthopedic surgeon warned the pelvis might never heal straight. Pops listened, nodded, asked questions sharp enough to make residents sweat, then went right back to holding my hand like nothing had changed. On day 17, the numbers finally started moving the right way. My blood pressure stabilized. The ventilator settings dropped. A nurse caught Pops smiling for the first time in 2 weeks. That same afternoon, while he leaned close, whispering that the bass were running and we'd go fishing the minute I woke up, a tall man in a navy suit appeared at the glass door. Mr. Lawson had worked cases with Pops 28 years ago. They still played dominoes once a month. Pops looked up, saw the folder in Lawson's hand, and gave one slow nod. No words needed. Lawson left the hospital, got in his silver Cadillac, and drove straight to Buckhead. He knew the address by heart. Rochelle and Destiny were in the foyer, surrounded by designer luggage. 2 matching pink suitcases sat by the door, tags already attached for a 10-day Caribbean cruise leaving from Port Canaveral the next morning. Gregory was upstairs on a work call. Destiny was filming herself twirling in a new sundress for Instagram. Rochelle was double-checking passports. The doorbell rang. Lawson introduced himself, handed over the thick envelope, and waited while Rochelle ripped it open. Inside were 2 sets of papers: emergency petition to strip parental rights for medical neglect of a minor, and a civil suit filed by the hospital for extraordinary life-saving expenses plus pain and suffering, both named Rochelle Turner, and because Destiny was 15 and had actively participated in the refusal, her as well. Rochelle's face went white under the spray tan. Destiny stopped recording mid-spin. "You have 72 hours to respond," Lawson said, voice calm. "After that, the judge has already agreed to an emergency hearing." Rochelle started yelling about lawyers and mistakes, and how dare anyone question her parenting. Destiny burst into dramatic tears, claiming she didn't mean anything by the texts. Lawson simply turned and walked back to his car. Inside the house, Rochelle slid down the wall, clutching the papers, mascara running black rivers down her cheeks. Destiny kept screaming that this would ruin her summer vacation. Gregory came downstairs, took one look at the documents, and went pale. Back at the hospital, Pops never mentioned the visitor. He just kept holding my hand, humming that same old hymn, waiting for the day my eyes would open. 2 days later, I opened my eyes for the first time. Everything hurt. My mouth tasted like metal and plastic. Machines still beeped, but softer now. The first face I saw was Pop's, unshaven, eyes red-rimmed, grinning so wide I thought his cheeks would split. "Hey, sweetheart," he whispered, voice cracking. "Welcome back." I tried to speak. Nothing came out except a rasp. He pressed the call button, then lifted the whiteboard at the foot of the bed so I could read it. In black marker, big bold letters, "Legal Guardian, Walter Hayes." I stared until the words blurred. Tears rolled sideways into my ears. He wiped them away with a thumb that still smelled faintly of catfish and lake water. Over the next hours, between nurses checking vitals and doctors shining lights in my eyes, he told me everything. The FaceTime call. My mother's exact words. Destiny's screenshot. The papers served while I lay unconscious. He didn't sugarcoat any of it. He never had. I cried again, harder this time. Not from pain, but from relief so deep it felt like drowning in reverse. 3 weeks later, they let me go home. Not to Buckhead, but to Pop's little brick ranch in Decatur, 15 minutes east of the city. The magnolia trees hit my lungs the second he carried me over the threshold. My new bedroom used to be his workshop. He'd painted the walls soft yellow and hung the same wind chimes we'd made when I was 10. From the window, I could see the backyard rolling out, steady and green. Physical therapy started the following Monday. I learned to sit up, then stand, then shuffle behind a walker while Pop spotted me like I was 2 years old again. He cooked catfish and grits every night because it was soft enough for my wired jaw. We watched the sunset from the porch swing, his arm around my shoulders, neither of us needing to fill the quiet. One afternoon, my phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. The screen showed Mom. I stared at it for 10 rings. Pops watched from the doorway, saying nothing. I pressed decline, set the phone face down, and went back to the porch. That was the only time she ever tried. Across town, Gregory filed for divorce the same week. His dealership had just landed a massive contract with a national fleet company. The last thing he needed was headlines about child abandonment tied to his name. He moved out of the Buckhead house before the ink dried, taking only his clothes and the golf clubs. Destiny lost her mind on social media for about 4 days, then went radio silent when colleges started pulling scholarship offers. Pops never brought it up unless I asked. When I did, he answered straight, "They made their choice, Tiana. Now we make ours." Some nights the pain woke me screaming. He'd shuffle in wearing old Fire Academy sweats, sit on the edge of the bed, and hold my hand until the meds kicked in. Other nights I woke to the sound of him praying out loud in the living room, voice rough, asking God to give him enough years to see me whole again. By the time the stitches came out and the casts turned to braces, I could walk the length of the driveway without stopping. Pops bought 2 rods and a bucket of bait. We sat at Stone Mountain Lake where the water turns deep green, lines in the water, not catching much but not caring. The sun burned the last of the hospital smell off my skin. I looked out at the horizon one evening, wind whipping my hair across my face, and realized I wasn't waiting for anything anymore.
No επάλεγη. No explanation.
No second chance I never wanted to give. The water just kept moving, same as always. A couple of months later, the preliminary hearing day arrived. The courthouse on Pryor Street smelled like old wood and floor wax. I walked in on crutches, Pops on one side, Lawson on the other. My mother sat at the defendant's table in a navy suit 2 sizes too big now, eyes puffy, no makeup. Destiny slouched beside her in a private school blazer, staring at the floor. The judge was a woman with steel-gray hair and zero patience. She adjusted her glasses and told the bailiff to roll the recording. The FaceTime call played on the big screen. My broken body on the gurney. The spa music in the background. My mother's voice, clear and cold, "If she doesn't make it, just call me when it's over." Destiny's laugh. The screenshot of my bloody face with her caption underneath. The courtroom went dead silent. A juror in the back actually gasped. Lawson laid the phone records on the bench next. Destiny had forwarded the photo to 9 different group chats within 5 minutes. One message read, "One less drama queen stealing my spotlight." The judge's pen stopped moving. She looked at my mother for a long, hard moment. "Mrs. Turner," she said, voice like ice, "in 26 years on this bench, I have never heard a parent speak about their child this way while that child was fighting for her life. Temporary full custody is immediately transferred to Walter Hayes, effective today. We'll see you back here for the permanent hearing." She banged the gavel so hard the sound echoed off the marble. 4 days later, Rochelle was fired from her job at the Georgia State Employees Credit Union. Background checks are mandatory for anyone handling federal funds. Medical neglect of a minor is an automatic disqualifier. Security escorted her out with a cardboard box. Destiny's full-ride academic scholarship to Emory University got revoked the same week. The admissions board cited conduct incompatible with the values of the institution. Suddenly, the private academy that once worshipped her started whispering behind her back. Within a month, the Buckhead house went into foreclosure. Gregory's name was already off the deed. He had signed everything over to protect his assets. Mother and daughter moved into a 2-bedroom apartment off Buford Highway, the kind with peeling paint and a broken elevator. Destiny lost her car. Rochelle took a night job stocking shelves at a grocery store to cover rent. Meanwhile, I started real therapy. Twice a week, a van picked me up for outpatient physical rehab at Grady. I learned how to climb stairs again, how to balance on a balance beam, how to trust my own legs. Pops drove me every single time, waited in the lobby reading the same 3 fishing magazines until I came out sweating and shaking. On Thursdays, I saw a trauma counselor named Dr. Phillips. We sat in a small office that smelled like lavender and talked about nightmares, about rage, about the day I realized I never wanted to hear my mother's voice again. Pops waited in the truck, windows down, gospel station low, never once complaining about the heat. Some afternoons when the pain in my hips got too loud, I'd sit on the back deck and throw pieces of cornbread to the birds. Pops would join me with 2 sweet teas, and we'd watch the clouds roll by. He never tried to fix my anger. He just let me feel it. By the end of summer, I could ditch the crutches for a cane, then the cane for nothing at all. I still walked with a slight limp, but the doctor said most of it would fade by my 18th birthday. One evening, I made it all the way around Stone Mountain Park and back without stopping. Pops met me halfway, carrying a blanket and a flashlight even though the sun hadn't set yet. We sat on the grass, shoes off, letting the breeze cool our feet. I leaned my head on his shoulder. "Thank you for staying," I said. He kissed the top of my head. "Nowhere else I'd rather be, sweetheart." 8 months after the crash, the final trial day came. I walked into the courtroom without crutches, cane, or limp. The scar on my forehead was still pink, but my head was high. Pops sat right behind me in his Sunday suit, the one he wore to my dad's funeral. Rochelle looked smaller than I remembered, hair pulled back tight, clutching a tissue she never used. Destiny stared straight ahead, arms crossed so hard her knuckles went white. Lawson called me to the stand first. I swore in, sat down, and looked the judge in the eye. "Tell the court how it felt," he said, "knowing your mother refused to come while you were dying." I took a breath. The room waited. "It felt like the last piece of me that still believed I mattered just died on that table," I said. My voice didn't shake. I learned in one sentence that I was disposable. And the person who said it was the same woman who used to read me bedtime stories. I told them about waking up to Pop's name on the Guardian line. About the single missed call I never returned. About every night I fell asleep listening to the cicadas instead of wondering why I wasn't enough. Rochelle's lawyer tried to paint her as stressed, overwhelmed, a victim of circumstance. He brought up her job loss, the foreclosure, the divorce. I didn't look at her once. When he finished, the judge asked if I had anything else to say. "Yes, Your Honor," I answered. "I don't want her money. I don't want her apologies. I just want this to be over. I already have a family." The judge didn't need long. She returned 22 minutes later. Permanent termination of parental rights for Rochelle Turner, effective immediately. Civil judgment in favor of the plaintiff and the hospital, $530,000. The Buckhead property will be sold at auction to satisfy the lien. Mr. Walter Hayes is granted full legal adoption. This case is closed. The gavel cracked like a starting gun. Outside in the hallway, reporters shouted questions. I ignored them all, took Pop's arm, and walked into the September sunshine. 4 weeks later, the bank padlocked the big brick house. A moving truck came for what little Rochelle and Destiny decided to keep. They loaded boxes into an old sedan and drove north on I-85, headed somewhere cheaper, somewhere nobody knew their names. I never asked where. That same month, the adoption papers arrived in the mail. I signed Tiana Hayes for the first time and cried harder than the day I woke up from the coma. Pops framed the certificate above the fireplace, right next to my dad's old portrait. I started my senior year at a charter school 10 minutes from Decatur. Small classes, teachers who actually cared, no one who knew the story unless I told them. I made the honor roll every quarter and got accepted early decision to Georgia State, close enough to come home every night if I wanted. Graduation day came warm and bright. I wore the gold cap and gown, same color as the bedroom walls Pops painted for me. When they called my name, the entire senior class stood up and cheered, because by then everyone knew who had carried me through. Pops waited at the bottom of the steps in his dress uniform, medals polished, eyes shining. I ran to him, threw my arms around his neck, and let him lift me off the ground like I still weighed nothing. 5 years have passed since that 4th of July. I'm 21 now, degree in social work on the wall, working as a family trauma counselor at a non-profit just over in Midtown. Every day I sit across from teenagers who believe no one will ever choose them, and I get to tell them they're wrong, because someone chose me when the people who were supposed to love me most walked away without looking back. Pops turned 79 last month. He still mows the yard himself, still catches more fish than any guide on Lake Lanier, still makes the best catfish and grits in the state. The house in Decatur is exactly the same, wind chimes singing, porch swing creaking, coffee pot always half full. My old room is still soft yellow. His workshop is still a bedroom because neither of us ever changed it back. We eat dinner on the deck most nights, watching fireflies dance in the yard. He calls me sweetheart exactly once a day, usually when he hands me a sweet tea. I still call him Pops. Nothing else feels right. Rochelle and Destiny left Georgia for good 2 years ago. Last I heard, they were somewhere in Tennessee, renting a trailer under different last names. I never searched for them. They never searched for me. The silence is clean. It's final. It's peace. Some people ask if I'm angry. I'm not. Anger takes energy I decided to spend on living instead. Some ask if I forgive. Forgiveness isn't mine to give. It's theirs to earn, and they never tried. I'm simply done. What I do carry is gratitude so deep it still catches me off guard. Gratitude for the man who slept in a vinyl chair for 19 nights. For the retired chief who never missed a single therapy appointment. For the grandfather who turned his house into a home and his heart into a harbor. Family isn't the people who share your blood. Family is the person who stays when your blood runs cold on an operating table. Family is the one who signs the papers, holds your hand, and never once makes you feel like a burden. If you're watching this and you're scared you don't have that person, look harder. They're out there. Sometimes they're the grandparent you didn't expect to need. Sometimes they're the friend, the teacher, the neighbor who refuses to leave. And when you find them, hold on. Because real family isn't born. It's chosen every single day. Especially on the days when choosing you costs them everything. That's the only truth I know for sure. And that's my story.